Welcome to this episode of the Have You Seen podcast with Lottie Cole. You know those homes that kind of look perfect at first glance? The ones that are filled with books and beautiful furniture and soft lighting and spaces that are like curated within an inch of their lives? Well, these are the interiors that Lottie Cole paints perfectly. But beneath all that elegance, there is something a lot more, let's call it psychological. Questions of class, identity, memory, and the quiet performance of a domestic life well lived are all the things that take place in Lottie's canvases. And I love them. And I am so excited that she's joined us today because she's got a show opening in London in just a few short weeks. And she's taken some time out of her busy studio to talk about how these rooms tell stories of the people that inhabit them. They're portraits in the true sense of the word without people. There are also portraits that she does with people, and we'll get into it. But first of all, let's just welcome Lottie to the studio. Hello, how are you? Thank you so much. I know that you are so super busy with all the things, but I'm just so thrilled that you have half a second to stop painting to have a chat.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me. I'm very delighted to chat about it.
When you're prepping for a show like this, is it like, I imagine it is literally you're painting sort of round the clock and stopping is kind of an interruption, or am I just romanticizing the artist's life? Is it like that?
Um, well, I think that probably, because they only come around every 2 years, and actually, I'm feeling a bit bereft because most things have gone to the framers now. Um, and typically, I feel like I could have done a number of extra work, which I haven't got round to doing. But I also I need a deadline to get going. But also, I like them, though the shows only come around every 2 years. Um, I really like how long it takes. Like, even though if you timed how long I was actually painting a painting for, it wouldn't be that long. I like living with it for a number of months and then sort of turning it to the wall, having thought that it was finished, and then thinking, oh my God, what was I thinking? And then revisiting it and doing more to it. So, but it's good to kind of have to say at a certain point, okay, you've done enough. You could carry on working on it, but you've actually got to just give it over now.
I would imagine that like letting them go is your stop. But then when you see them again, like when they're in the gallery, do you think, oh, I could have done more?
Sometimes I often think, oh God, I don't even remember. I always remember what I was listening to because I like listening to podcast stories. Um, and, and so I actually said, God, I don't even remember painting that at all, but I could tell you exactly what kind of gruesome thriller or something that I was listening to. That I can hear that. But and then sometimes I think, gosh, they're a bit, yeah, I could have put some more in that, but um generally, no. It's almost like once they want, as soon as they get to the gallery and they're framed, it's almost like they're not yours anymore. And actually, you took that decision
Mm.
to stop doing anything to them, and you just got to stick with it, really. Um,
I love that you might be listening to a gruesome thriller while painting what are like some of the most serene scenes. I've gotten really into the morbid podcast. I don't know if you know this one, but I was walking the dog the other day, and I think I was walking down the road like holding my chest. I mean, I was like dying listening to some serial killer historical podcast. And someone stopped me and was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, sorry, totally fine. Just terrified because I'm listening to this silly podcast." How do you? Well, we should probably back up and have you chat a little bit about how this series started, because these interiors they are so um still and grounded. How did the idea come to you to sort of paint portraits through interiors?
Well, I think I had one of the first shows I had. It was about Bloomsbury interiors. I worked at the London Library, and it's this place which is full of writers and have been around for almost 200 years, and lots of famous people. And then the whole point is you walk through the corridors and you can take books off a shelf that maybe Virginia Woolf took off a shelf, and it's exactly the same book. And then I'm from Sussex, and I went and had a look around Charleston Farmhouse and also Monk's House. And I had this idea for just painting those interiors. But I mean, the sort of embarrassing thing is I wasn't particularly drawn to it because it was Virginia Woolf. Monk's House it just was so reminiscent of my grandparents' house, which was in Sussex, had an oil-filled arg, and just the smell of it was so identical. Um, but I really enjoyed doing that because it was also the rooms are just kind of normal size. They're not sort of stately homes, and so you can, if you're doing it, you can kind of imagine what it'd be like to live there. Um, and I really enjoyed doing that, and it was really wonderful that that was some well-known people's spaces. But after that, I thought, well, I enjoyed the process, but I can't find another house. And it was also a bit like a love affair because people said, "Oh, can you do more paintings?" But I was like, I did that series, and I don't want to. I want to leave it. It was perfect. I was so in love with it, and now kind of like when you're over it, you're over it. So then I wanted to move on, but I couldn't think of. I looked for other houses, and then in the end, I thought, well, I'll just make up my own rooms, and I will furnish them with things that I like. If I assume a sort of persona of someone. So, and it happened that a good friend who was a um, curator at the Tate was doing a clear out of sort of 20 years of Bonhams, Christie's, Sotheby's, modern British catalogues. And he said I couldn't cherry pick, but I could come and take them all. So I just got this enormous collection of art catalogues, and I started flipping through them, and that was great. And I did a couple with some like people like William Scott and things like that. But then I was like, there are no women in these, or there are only just one or two women, and I already knew that there were people who I'd come across who should have been in these catalogues, and even from like a sort of male perspective, you see that the auction houses really only back two or three, or like a handful of people, men or women. And so I thought, well, I'm just gonna now do these interiors and put women's work generally, which is sort of and which is as good as the men's. And the irony is that they were probably just as successful as the men during the time when they were alive, but as soon as they die, or then they just get forgotten. So I carried on. I did that for a couple of shows, and yeah, and then I just got really into just creating spaces, and I think I do like moving house. I'm constantly. I mean, I'm not on the move, and so it's a way of me to kind of contain that I can just plan another house, and I would love to be buying art, but I don't have the budget. So I buy it and paint it in my head, and then I mean, and I'm always like, oh, this person is is a this or a that, and so therefore this is their interest. But actually, it's all if it was me and I was that person, and that was my interest. And then just rooms are such a great way of expressing ideas uh, without it having to contain people or be a history painting, I suppose.
It's so that idea of uh, loving moving, or yeah, loving changing space really resonates. I mean, I'm forever moving furniture around in my office, in our living room, and my husband's always like, "Can you just leave things where they are?" Um, but I understand the need to like try out a different character almost, right? Like you move a bookshelf and all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah, I mean, my
Do you know
mum
what I
was also,
mean?
oh God, things are on the move again. When I was a child, she'd be hearing like furniture being dragged around. Um, and I'm endlessly on,
Same.
I mean, I'm just endlessly, partly because my great grandmother and my great aunt were sort of notorious for that they lived in this village or several villages around such, and they would just like move every 2 years. They go, "Oh, well, we love this house, but now we're going to move to." They sort of moved up and down the road, and they were very casual with their furniture. They just like, "Oh, chop it in half, we'll put it back together," and there was this sort of, I don't know, it just seemed. I mean, okay, I mean, it was all around a sort of 1 square mile, basically, but it was remarkably kind of loose in terms of just going, okay, well, we fancy this house now, so we'll move there. Um, and I just, I mean, the tragedy is that I always am sort of imagining moving somewhere, but then you think, oh, but I'd be there if I moved there. Unfortunately, I go too. So it's sort of actually, I mean, so I just enjoy doing them, but and I imagine that I live there, but then I don't need to move. I've had the enjoyment without having to actually go there myself.
I wonder though if that's what draws me to the work in the first place is like I can sort of insert myself. And you do oftentimes leave a way in for people, whether it's a chair or a table or a right that you can kind of insert yourself. Is that intentional? Do you do that as like an invitation?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think if if there was a person in that space, they would be occupying it, and you can't imagine yourself going in there. Um, and so yeah, I like to, you know, there's always hopefully something that you could imagine walking yourself in there, and sometimes the viewpoints are slightly so that you just walked into the room, and either you're looking down, and then windows. Again, sometimes slightly ill-defined. I just think I really like early Renaissance, sort of northern early Renaissance paintings like Robert Campin and people like that. And I feel like they're really generous. You've got an interior, that they have often have a Madonna and Child, but there's also a window that shows you the cityscape or something. So you get this, it's more of a world. It's not just a room. And I like that. I think that's then you can, and then but there's also enough left out that you're filling in the details. That's the aim.
Mm. And the upcoming show continues on that theme, or it's a departure, or you recently did a trip, right? Like
Yep.
I feel like there's some breadcrumbs here we need to chase.
It's same but different. I don't know how I came across, uh, like what rabbit hole I went down, but I was looking at mid-century women from the last century, and then the writer Elizabeth Bowen, I came across her, and then, I mean, I knew of her, but she has Cole in her name, and she's Anglo-Irish, and my father was Irish, and she lived in Dublin and Cork, and that's where my father was from. And then she started art college and dropped out. She went to the same school that I did, albeit they were in different locations. She lived in Regent's Park. I used to live in Kentish Town. It's like, I mean, there was like, I felt like there was a North London, Sussexy, although she then lived in Hythe in Kent. But I just thought, well, that's south of England. And just more and more of these things happened. And then I just thought, well, I also listened to this incredible interview of her on the BBC, and she talked about how interiors play such an important role in her work, and it sets up this kind of gravity, and situation to explore time, and that they're containers of time. And I just thought, oh, um, I was connecting so much with it, and then actually how she looks so like a lot of my great aunts. My grandmother was one of 9 children. There were 5 women, and they all dressed the same. So they all, wherever they went, they sort of had if one of them found a good pair of shoes, then they'd let the others know so that they'd all have the same shoes because, it was comfortable. And they all wore these kind of velvet berets. on an angle with a brooch, and they were very sort of smart, but very in a particular way, um, and threadbare, as well. And that's how she looks. She's very distinctive. But then there was other things. So her house that she was always, I mean, it was a very grand house, uh, and she was constantly, though she was a very successful writer, just trying to do things to pay for it, and then unfortunately that doesn't work out, and she has to sell it, and she sells it to this farmer who she thinks is going to enjoy living there with his children, but actually he just wants the estate for this extremely expensive wood, all these oak trees, and he pulls it down. He just puts some chains from one end of the corner of the house to the other and pulls the whole thing down. And but she says that it's almost better to think of the house not existing without her in it than with her than with someone else living in it. And it's just that deep connection to a house and its life. And I just thought that was just so fascinating. And yeah, so I just thought, oh well, I'll indulge myself as and then the other thing was, so because of all these resonances, I just thought I wish she was my relative. And I feel like people would think more of me, and because people in the art world and in all worlds, like, lineage and provenance is so, it does, I mean, okay, now people are calling it nepo babies, but I think in the past, and actually still now, if someone said, oh well, this is Jane Austen's great great granddaughter who's written the, you know novel, you would look at it differently, and you would have this additional lens. So yeah, it's a slight kind of joke to myself that if she was, it would be nice to be her relation. So
But there's a weird thought that's forming in my head that I'm going to spit out really ineloquently, most likely, but let's try. That when you were talking about, your family who in this town in Sussex who moved between like houses that were 2 feet apart, I started thinking about um, how like we used to migrate, and if that desire, like my desire to move furniture, I've moved a ton in my life, probably more than most people, but not like so much. You know what I mean? Like growing up, I had sort of 3 houses, 4 houses, and then my dad was here, so I came to this other house that wasn't my house, but was my house. Um, but when you were mentioning it, I was like, huh, I wonder if this ties back to this like need to move, that we did move as a group of people. Like we moved around a lot, and we did have different homes, and we didn't have this idea of like the family home, right? And if this is actually a rather new concept. Um, and so then the layer with Bowen is really interesting because like that connection could be there in some
um
distant way.
well,
Who
she
knows?
is very grand, and like my family, I've discovered, were Methodists in Catholic Ireland, which is like, when I found, I knew that my father had always said uh, that they were this very extreme form of Protestantism, like more extreme than the Plymouth Brethren, and he had a very slightly complicated upbringing. And I didn't realize till years later I was reading some, but it's just like, to be a Methodist and an extreme Methodist in Southern Catholic Ireland is just such a perverse choice, and that just felt very my my family. I felt like, oh God, I feel so much is becoming clear that you would take this kind of harder route to exist, very much as a sort of outsider, or as an unwelcome person. So, but yeah, I think probably people. Well, I think there's two things. There's the people who never go anywhere. There's a farmer who lives here, and I said, "Oh, have you always lived around here?" And he said, "Oh no," and he basically named a village 5 miles away. That's where he's from. And you know, to me, it's like, if you're around, it's like the whole county or like southern England or whatever. But he was so very specific about, so I think on the one hand, I love the idea of constantly moving, but then the idea of being that person who's always been in one place seems incredibly attractive as well. Um, but then
So
you wouldn't live as many lives.
what does this no. But it feels like that's you're painting that, right? You're painting all these different possible lives, so these different possible yeah, versions of you or versions of us, or like, does that feel like a fair statement? That like these are these parallel universes that you could hop into if
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, the thing that I am always so surprised when, like you said, they were really serene and calm, and I mean that is, it's not that that's not me, but it's very unintentional that they are, I'm surprised that that's how they come out, because sometimes um I don't know, that's just not my intention with them. I don't know quite. um
mm,
it's funny that that comes across, because I often think of them as rather sort of uh not different, but that, I don't know, that's just not what I'm setting out to do. It's more like trying to put together, I don't know, something that's about a whole lifetime, but maybe it comes out as serene. Um, uh, yeah, sorry, I just
it's
waffled on.
certainly no, maybe serene's not well, it is. I like I can remember the first few that I saw thinking like, oh, I want to go there, or having that desire. And this is terrible, right? The desire, because I was looking at them on a screen at first, to like go in them, kind of use my fingers
Yeah,
and pinch them so I could get as close as humanly possible. But they're really, yeah, they're inviting, and you do. I mean, maybe it's a indictment of how chaotic my office is, or uh, our living room, because I'm constantly moving it around. But like they're so, and I think I did say at the beginning that like they're so grounded uh, that you kind of want to go in them, sit down, and have a cup of tea.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I had
um,
someone come to my studio recently, and I said, "Oh, I haven't tidied up because I just thought, what's the point?" And she was like, um, "Yeah, when some people say that they work in a mess, I get there and it's fine, but you really mean it." So it's like, yeah, I mean, because I don't know, the chaos, I kind of like make it different. I've actually moved some of the boxes, but it's a bit like a sort of Channel 5 hoarders documentary of just kind of moving around. So maybe they are just an escape from reality, and somewhere to go instead, to contemplate whatever it is you want to think about.
so this question is a less about kind of your work and more about um, the lead up to a show like this. So you're showing it at a gallery that you've worked with before. So I guess some of the kind of butterflies around, um, yeah, a debut are gone. But equally, what does it feel like now? You've got a few weeks um, left before it open. Like, are you nervous? Are you excited? Are you what's the vibe?
Um, it's really strange. It's almost like I can only, so I used to go away, I used to earn money cooking, and when I was younger, and so I've always liked the preparation for the party, and when the party starts, I'd much prefer to just let everyone get on with it. And it's a bit like that. It's sort of, it's now not in my hands. I'm already thinking about what my next painting is going to be. And actually, last time they asked me if I wanted to come and hang the show, and I just found it so excruciating. I I had to sort of I was in the end, because uh, it's like trying to choose between your children, and that's what they're good at. I just feel like that's not where I'm going to be actually able to help. I will probably normally the picture I like best is always left on the shelf, and then other pictures that I didn't like so much, or didn't, or thought, oh well, no one will get that. That one is what goes. So I think it is weird. It's this weird lull, and you don't quite know. But actually, it's almost quite good because you have to send it off to go to the framers, and it actually gets a bit of distance. So when it isn't the it can never be that I don't know. It's really hard to the private views I find excruciating too. Um, in a because you just obviously you want people to like them, but then and buy them because that's just what allows you to keep on doing it. But in a way, um, you just have to let it be what it's going to be, and let the gallery do what they're really good at, which is arranging it, and you know talking to people about it. Um, so it's a funny sort of lull period. It's sort of it's almost you'd think it would be the most busy period, but actually not so much. Well, having said that, the framer, poor guy, he didn't realize I was delivering quite so many pictures, so he's got a very busy few weeks coming up. So yeah, I've transferred the stress to someone else maybe.
There's nothing wrong with that. Um, the thing that I totally forgot to ask you and meant to, and I opened my notes being like, I know that I have forgotten something, was we didn't even talk about you actually went to um, Ireland to like look at Bowen's court, right?
Well,
Um,
to Doneraile.
and so great, thank you, Doneraile Court. That's right. Um, and you went to where she's buried.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you were talking about the spaces have become these kind of imagined spaces, but with the new work, is it more based in reality, or is it still that sort of hybrid?
It's kind of there are some wonderful photographs at Doneraile Court of her albums, of Bowen's Court. So there are a couple of paintings which have sort of taken her family album. Like there are lots of pictures of everybody sitting on the steps of Bowen's Court chatting and all these, and she had all of the sort of literati of the day there, um, and they're all sort of lounging about. And so one of the paintings I've done is sort of it's moonlight, and it's the steps of Bowen's Court, but with the idea that inside you can hear the sounds of dinner party and chatting, and it's summer and there's a little bit of light coming out. So I did, so that I used an image of Bowen's Court, but then I also came across Derek Hill, the painter, was a good friend of hers, and after um, she'd left Bowen's Court, he actually painted a painting of Bowen's Court for her after it had been destroyed. Um, and then his house uh, uh, is also is in Ireland too, and so there are some great photos of that. So I kind of took some of his photos, some of the photos of the interiors of Bowen's Court, but then also there's a great guy called the Irish aesthete, and there are some books about all the houses that no longer exist from that Protestant ascendancy period, that were burnt down or just through lack of inability to maintain them. So there's lots of source material that you can go and find a room of that kind. Um, and then the idea was just sort of all of that stuff that's in those houses, and actually what do we all do with the stuff that's given to us that migrates from generation to generation, and how would probably Bones Court has some really grand things in it. And I've done one painting where it's just a little model of Bowen's Court that's sitting above a door, Um, I don't even know. I don't know whether a model of Bowen's Court exists, but it's just like I know those sorts of things stick around. Um, and and also over the same period, my mother moved house and uh, getting rid of lots of things. And actually, if you have moved a lot, it's both a kind of wonderful moment, but also kind of really bizarre when you stand in a house for the last time and you're just at the top of the stairs and you're going to walk out for the last time. I don't know. It's just we've all done it, um, or in a flat, or or wherever you live. That kind of bit when you're doing it for the last time is really, I don't know, not amazing. It's just very meaningful. Uh, yeah. So I did use some of the photos, and I just really, I mean, I went to the where she's buried, and I got there, and I had high hopes this was going to be a really, momentous part of the trip. And there were 6 men strimming the churchyard, and it couldn't have been. And you walk up a little pathway, and you come round, and it was literally like the opposite of the experience, but it was still beautiful. That was reality, which I quite like that. The fact that you set yourself up for something profound, and you're met with strimmers is probably you know quite a good life lesson, really. Mhm.
The total reality, right?
Yeah.
If there's one Bowen novel that we should all read before we see the show, what is it?
Well, I love The House in Paris, but perhaps The Last September. The Last September is change is coming, and they all know it. Um, and I think that's just really interesting. Sort of maybe it feels like we all know that's what's happening now. Something's changing, um, but equally some things don't change. I mean, I think that's why uh, a bowl of flowers in a painting just lasts, speaks across the centuries because yeah, lots of everything changes, but you know, having memories of your relatives, your childhood, your children, those are the things that actually really have any meaning for everybody. So yeah, I mean, I think The Last September is the one I'd recommend. Um,
Yeah, I will be going into the local bookstore and getting that this weekend. So the show opens on the 4th of June at Long Ryle.
yeah, that's right. Just behind, 3-minute walk from Pimlico station, just behind Tate Britain. The 88 bus stops just outside. Should that be your preferred mode of transport?
Amazing.
Um,
And
yeah,
it's
and it's
on all
on
summer or early July?
till early July. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it. I love this way you blend fact and fiction, and as I said, I want to live in one of your paintings. So thrilled to see it, and thank you for in the calm stopping to chat with us.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been really great to talk to you. Thanks.